Both of the Chargers' new offensive and defensive coordinators spoke with the media on Thursday, and it was no surprise to hear what Greg Roman's vision was for this offense. Imagine how good this could be if Justin Herbert had a running game.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer. We've been covering the Chargers together now for 8 seasons, but this is our 6th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you guys, as always, for making us your first listen today. And to make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, or listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Well, Daniel, we finally got to hear from the new offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator of the Chargers. And the first thing was all about trying to get Justin Herbert a running game so that you can bring some balance. And that's the other thing that the Chargers offensive coordinator, Greg Roman, wanted to bring is balance to the table. That's very, very important. You want to be able to attack in multiple ways. And then on defense, Jesse Minter talking about how he wants to use Derwin James and not overcomplicating things so the players can go out there and play fast and play physical.
It's almost like he said that specifically to make all the, Brandon Staley people and how much he's hurt us feel a little bit better, because complicated is good. Confused is not. But let's talk about this offense, because it was nice hearing Greg Roman's philosophies, hearing him talk for the first time. And the big thing is for him is just like what my vision is for this offense is giving Justin Herbert a running game. And like, it kind of reminds me of how we all felt with Brandon Staley, where we were just like, if you can just give Justin Herbert a good defense by bringing in this defensive guru, imagine how good it'll be just kind of on its own, right? Because you have Justin Herbert, who's always going to be good, and you have a good defense. It didn't happen like that. But you're here with Greg Roman, who's saying, look, Justin Herbert's never had a good run game. Imagine what this offense could look like if we give him some help and don't make him have to do everything.
I mean, it's absolutely a wonder, right? I mean, what a concept to be able to think about giving a superstar quarterback that can throw it all over the yard a competent running game to bring some balance. And I think that's one of the big things is you're really wanting to give Justin Herbert a competent running game so that he can go out there and do his thing and that you can keep defenses off balance. I mean, I think that's so important to be able to get the most out of this offense. And, I think this is a great stat from Chris Rim of ESPN. He said the Chargers have not had a top 5 rushing yards per game since 2007, which is absolutely insane. It's been a very, very, very long time since the Chargers have had that type of running game. And good thing for them, Greg Roman, he brings top 10 rushing attacks pretty much everywhere he goes.
Yeah, and the thing is like no one can answer the question because we haven't seen it, right? And he says, can you imagine Justin Herbert with a great running game? We don't know, but I can imagine what it might look like. So that's kind of what the vision is. And I can imagine it too, and the vision I get is pretty good, right? He's never had one. Having a good run game is also going to open things up for him. And Roman has had success everywhere he's gone. But to give Justin Herbert that, to not make him have to play hero ball, I think is really the main thing that I took away from this, where he did say, hey, we're going to have, some good passing concepts as well, and we're going to mix things up and have diverse passing concepts, but also we're trying to give him a good running game, because if he has that, trying to stop Justin Herbert when you actually have to think about something else, be afraid of something else, is such a big part of it. But at the end of the day, he knows what he has, right? He said, I'm not going to compare him to anybody because he's his own guy, but he's got all the physical tools you need to be a great player in this league. So what he's saying there, and that's from Eric Smith, the Chargers team reporter, is just, I know what I have, right? It's not necessarily going to just be, hey, we're going to pound the ball 50 times a game when we have Justin Herbert back there. But what they're ultimately seeking, David, is the balance and finding the balance of, hey, Justin Herbert's going to do great things in the running game or in the passing game, right? But we're trying to give him a complementary piece.
I mean, the balance is something that, we really have not seen. And I think that's definitely something that's super important. And he went on to say, we want to be a balanced offense. We want to be able to run it when we want to run it and throw it when we want to throw it. If they present a look that's favorable to run it, then we want to be able to run it at a high level. Every place I've been, that's kind of been the goal, to try to have a complete attack. And that's definitely what I want to see. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love seeing Justin Herbert sling it across the field and be able to hit receivers all over the place and really see the way that he operates. But having that running game to be able to really shrink the game, to be able to stay ahead of the sticks, to be able to really work that play action game, and really kind of take that to the next level. I mean, we heard Brandon Staley talk ad nauseum at trying to marry the run and the pass. It just never came to fruition. And I think when you have somebody who has that kind of track record that Greg Roman has as far as establishing really, really good running games, I think that it really comes with more credence when he says it because there's a level of believability there.
Yeah, I mean, he's done it, and unlike Brandon Staley, he did it for an extended period of time, right? But also, shout out to all the reporters out there that gave us all the quotes for this, because this was something that was not released to the public. So Daniel Popper put out a great piece. So did Eric Smith from the actual Chargers beat. And you also have guys like Elliot Teford, OC Register, wrote a great piece about it where he said this: "Oh man, it's a team that when other teams see us on the schedule, they go, oh God, we have to play these guys. I'm going to get blocked from every direction. Herbert's going to be back there firing dimes. This player is going to be making plays, trying to stop the run. They're just going to be gashing us." And that's what you want. You want other teams not being able to just say, we're putting everything, all of our resources into trying to stop Justin Herbert, which is what they have to do. And he also said this, basically something along the lines of like, I've been around other defensive coordinators. The teams they play that make them lose the most sleep are the teams that have a really, really good running game, because it's really, really hard to stop. So if you can get that balance, David, as he put it from Elliot Teford, we're trying to create conflict. That's the vision. If you can create that and you have that kind of balance, who knows what this offense can look like. So I know a lot of people are worried about, okay, hey, is Justin Herbert going to put the stats up? And Roman couldn't care any less about that, right? He basically said, how that looks in the stat line and all that, I really don't care, from Daniel Popper. And you'll be happy to sacrifice some of those stats, David, to have a more well-balanced offense that can beat more teams, that can work well against more different kinds of defenses.
Yeah, he said, I'm not worried about the stats because, I mean, if we're doing both at a high level, the stats are going to be there for both anyway. Exactly. And I think that's a very, very good point. And, I mean, I like this here also from Chris Room of ESPN. We want to have an offense that supports his talent. And there's a lot of different ways to do that, but the quarterback can't do everything on his own. We've seen that movie many, many times. Yeah. Justin Herbert trying to do everything he can, put the team on his back. I mean, my goodness. I mean, I think we all remember that Week 18 game against the Raiders where he went fourth down after fourth down after fourth down and just did absolutely everything he could to be able to bring the Chargers back in that game. And he had to do it because the Chargers didn't have any running game. And it's just the thing that we saw, you know, time and time and time again. So being able to take some stuff off of Justin Herbert's plate is going to make him more efficient and more effective. And that's truly all we want. We want to see the best version of Justin Herbert, and we have not seen that up to this point.
And what that's going to take, right, is the guys that they also have, the Marcus Brady's and the Mark Trestmans, right, being able to build passing concepts off of the way that Greg Roman is going to improve this running game and setting up the play action and getting those linebackers to have to step up and respect the run to open up the pockets of space behind it, right? Like it's sometimes it's not as complicated as it seems. Like if the other team has to respect your running game, it's going to open up things in the passing game. And he said he wants to be able to run when they want to run and pass when they want to pass. The other thing is you want to be able to do it kind of vice versa as well, right? Like you want to be able to run when they think you're going to pass. You want to be able to pass when you think you're going to run. Like if at the Chargers in any years past were trying to run the ball on like a 3rd and 4, everyone would be screaming, right? But imagine if that was actually an option, and imagine if that was something that other teams actually had to care about, right? What you're going to see is a lot less batted passes because teams aren't just expecting that Justin Herbert's going to have to take a 2-step drop and immediately get rid of the football, right? So those things can work together. And yeah, can you have concerns about Greg Roman's passing schemes and things like that in the past? Sure. But he also said this isn't going to be the offense you saw with Lamar Jackson. This isn't going to be the offense that you saw with Colin Kaepernick. This is going to be its own thing. And everything that we have is on the table, and we have all the pieces to make it work. And like we talked about before, at the end of the day, it comes down to this is going to be what Jim Harbaugh's vision of this offense wants to be, right? A former quarterback, a guy who's had prolific pass offenses in the past, even if he was kind of working with different kind of tools at Michigan and creating a different kind of identity there. He knows what they have in Justin Herbert, and a big part of the offense is going to be him. But the thing is, David, is you know who else said they were going to improve the running game? Kellen Moore. Did it happen? No, it might have actually gotten worse. That's the other big thing. And Greg Roman talked about that because, like he said, you can't just flip a switch and the running game is good. So how they improve the running game is something I thought was very important. I was very interested to see what he had to say about it, and we're going to talk about that coming up right after this. First, though, I need to tell you guys about Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is the perfect for city drives and great escapes. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. But the Nissan's incredible lineup also includes the 2024 Pathfinder. It has room for up to 8, an expansive cargo capacity, and advanced available 4x4 capability. With 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing, when adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. I also need to tell you guys about Logix. You know, on this show, we get into a lot of in-depth analysis and hot takes, but I need to give you guys my hottest take of the day, and that's the best lineup in LA right now is the auto loans at Logix. They start off at the top with my favorites, the proven and dependable new and used vehicle loans. You can count on these guys to give you low rates and save you big-time bucks. Next up, they have the exciting new rookie sensation in their electric vehicle loans with super low rates and flexible payment terms. Rounding out their lineup, they have the auto refinancing loans and the lease buyout loans. With these guys, you can lower your monthly payments and get on the road to owning your car faster. Look, I know it's a hot take, but seriously, no one can beat the lineup at Logix. Visit your local Logix branch right here in LA and the surrounding areas and let one of their amazing team members help you, or just apply online in minutes at logixbanking.com/car. That's LOGIXbanking.com/car. Logix is also a proud sponsor of For the Troops. For more information on the upcoming For the Troops Gala, visit www.troops.org/event for more information. All right, David, well, let's get into more of Greg Roman's comments that he made because we were very interested to see kind of how he planned to attack what he wants this offense to be. No surprise that he said he wanted to run the ball. That's the least surprising thing in the world, right? But how to run it is a little bit of a different story because there's multiple steps to it, David. And it starts with like what he said here, which was just, it doesn't just happen. It's not like, hey, we're going to have a good running game, then all of a sudden you have a good running game. We have to work really hard at it. We have to develop it, and it should improve and improve and improve as we go. That's from Eric Smith, but it's such a good point, and it's what we've been talking about. Like, you don't just get an identity. You don't just become a good running football team, David. There's different parts in the process that you have to get right for everything to come together and have that potent rushing attack.
Yeah, I mean, you have to work at it. It doesn't just happen. Yeah. Like he said. I mean, it's something that you really have to put the time into it, the effort into it, the intention into it, and you have to go out there and execute it. Like you have to. I mean, one of the things he said is, it's one thing to talk about running plays. It's another thing to actually call running plays. Right. I mean, if you want to be good at it, you have to consistently call them throughout the game, and you have to let these players. Give them an opportunity to express their physicality by actually what you do, the plays that you call. And that's from Daniel Popper of The Athletic. And I think that's just so true. You have to actually, and that's another thing we heard the players say is sometimes they had a hard time getting into rhythm because they didn't really run the ball enough. They would really give up on that a little bit too soon. That is definitely not going to happen with Greg Roman. Another thing that Daniel Popper said that I absolutely co-signed with, he is a guy that is going to stay committed to running the football.
Yeah, and he's right. I mean, you have to actually do it and do it and do it. And the thing is, the other part of that is you start grinding on people, right? Like, if you want to have an effective run game that is going to make teams kind of fold in the big moments in the fourth quarter, one of the big ways to do that is to run through their face over and over and over and over again, as the great Marshawn Lynch once said, right? If you're not, it's kind of like a boxing round, right? If you're not putting in the body shots early on, there's no point in going to the body in round 10.
Right.
Because guess what? You don't have the
investment's not there.
Exactly. You didn't put in the work early on to have it count late when things really matter the most. So I think that's what that's really saying there is, hey, You have to do it, and if you show that commitment to the players that you're going to do it, they're going to show the commitment and continuing to improve. And I think the other thing that he said that was interesting from Pop is you have to invest in it, right? Which means getting the right players to be able to do it, putting resources into building the strong run game, getting linemen who can not only pass protect, but also run block, getting receivers that can't only catch the ball, but who can block as well, getting tight ends, same thing, who get guys who can do both. And I don't know if the focus was always there when you look at a tight end room last year of Gerald Everett, Donald Parham, and Stone Smart, right? So you're going to get out of it what you put into it. You have to actually invest it in the running game to get the results that you want.
And honestly, I think, when we were complaining so much about the special teams unit and about how bad they were, what did the Chargers actually do? They went out there and they got the players that they needed to really turn that around. They invested the right way. They brought in an all-pro long snapper. They got a guy who, was really good at getting a ton of hang time with their punts with their punter that they brought in. So
J.K. Scott.
Yeah, J.K. Scott. Sorry, it just slipped my mind. And then, of course, Darius Davis being someone that's super, super dominant as a kick returner, punt returner. Yeah. That's the same type of thing that you need in the running game. You have to bring in the right players on the offensive side that will allow you to actually excel running the football. And you saw it. The tight end room was not up to par. The wide receivers probably weren't the best at run blocking. We know that the offensive line definitely was not utilized properly or coached properly to get the most out of the running game. All of these elements have to work in concert for the running game to really improve. And I think that's one of the things that Greg Roman is saying here.
It definitely is. And the thing is like, not only do you have to get the right players to do it, but you have to get that buy-in from the players. You have to have all 11 dudes, working the same way and all hitting their assignments. Because as we saw last year, I'm not including Justin Herbert. Like, if you have 9 guys or 8 guys blocking everything right, and one of them ends up losing their block or doesn't do the right thing or misses their assignment, it doesn't matter. It's a tackle for loss. Right. And that's what you need. And you need all of those guys to get the buy-in, to be willing to put their body on the line, to be willing to go all out and give maximum effort when they know the ball isn't coming their way. Right.
Yeah.
Getting your receiver to be a vicious, aggressive run blocker when he knows the ball isn't going to end up in his hands. Like, that's not as easy said as it is to be done. So getting that buy-in, getting that commitment is a huge part of it. And if you do that, then you can create the identity. Then you can be the big, strong team you want to be. You can be the physical team that you want to be. Because when you're actually doing it and you actually are seeing the results of being that aggressive, running it down people's throats, being that physical team that nobody wants to play, that's how you get the identity that you're chasing after by bringing in someone like Jim Harbaugh.
And the thing has been consistent. The message has been consistent from the top, all the way from the beginning. It's, hey, we are going to be a physical football team. We are going to run the football. We are going to beef up the running game. And we're going to bring in people that are going to allow us to excel doing that very thing. And I think it would have been so nice to have any semblance of a running game in all of those one-score games that the Chargers lost last year. 0-7 in those one-score games, they were atrocious. If they had any semblance of a consistent running game, I don't think there's any way that number is the same. That's how you put games away. That's how you beat teams. That's how you win in the playoffs, is you're able to run out the clock. You're able to impose your will. You're able to break the opponent's will by running the ball consistently and effectively. And pairing that with a quarterback that we know has top 5 talent, I think is something that this league is not ready for. And if the Chargers are able to orchestrate that and really put that vision on the field, it could lead to a lot of winning. And that's ultimately what the Chargers want to do.
Yeah, and I mean, when asked about what he wanted this offense to look like, he said he didn't say running or passing, right? He said, I want this to be a winning offense. That's what he kept saying. And that thing he kept talking about over and over again is after he'd say, hey, you need this. This is how you do this. This is how you run well. He said, but you have to do it. That was such a big thing. Like, you can talk about it. You have to go do it. And the other part you have to do is you have to give players the opportunity to express their physicality. Actually, what you do, the plays that you call. So not only saying these things, but backing it up with your play calling and letting them run powers and letting them pull guys to smash people and, get them going like that. Like, all of that's a part of it. Getting the buy-in from the players and then backing it up.
Love doing that too.
Offensive linemen for the most part. I mean, all the ones I talk to, they love running the football, right? But they also know that you have to consistently do it to get the kind of results that you want. And the play caller has to show his faith in them to actually do those things and to be physical by calling the right plays. And that's what Greg Roman plans on doing. But it's all talk until you actually go out there and punch somebody in the mouth. And you just, at least this makes you feel a little bit better about them actually being able to go out there and to do it. But I was really excited to hear what Jesse Minter had to say in his first comments, because I think I love the philosophy that he brought out. But the bigger thing to me is basically him saying, but you can have the perfect philosophy, but if it's too complicated and the guys don't get it, then it's not going to matter, right? And I want to talk about his thoughts on that coming up right after this. First, though, I need to tell you guys that today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off our chest, big or small. Certain things can really start to get to you, and it's important to let that out, especially to someone who's unbiased on your life. One of my favorite things about therapy is just having someone with no stake in the game, right, to be able to give their opinions on things. So today I want to say and talk to you about something about how I really feel, get something off of my chest. And today what I want to get off my chest is Antonio Gates getting snubbed for the Hall of Fame with absolutely no reason at all. And this is something I actually have had to talk to therapists about, because I'm saying, listen, he has the most touchdowns of anyone, right? My therapist is not someone who loves football. Most touchdowns of anyone in his position. He has 7th most touchdown of anyone who's ever caught footballs ever. He did everything he needed to. One of the best ever at his position. Doesn't get in on the first ballot. He'll never have the first ballot back. You can only be a first ballot Hall of Famer once. So the fact that they took that away from him is something it's going to take me a very, very long time to get over. But therapy can be different for everyone. Most of us have bigger problems in our favorite sports team. And it's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. David, let's continue to get into the first press conference for the new Chargers offensive coordinators. Ryan Ficken had some good things to say, but I don't need to talk about him. The proof is in the pudding. He's great. Yeah. Not worried about that. But I do want to talk about Jesse Minter, because we haven't got to hear from him since he became the Chargers' new defensive coordinator. I think we're all excited about the move. Yes. So I want to get into how his philosophy, how he kind of sees things playing out. But I do want to tell you guys, make sure you're checking out the first ever national 24/7 sports streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today, giving you local insight the only way that the local experts of Locked On can. So make sure you guys go subscribe to Locked On Sports Today to check that out all day, every day. David, what I first want to talk about is the philosophy. And I really liked what he had to say about his philosophy, about what he's trying to take away, what the vision is for what he wants to turn this defense into. And I really thought it was super insightful kind of getting to hear his words on it.
I agree. And I like that, he really believes in really teaching the concepts and really making sure that people understand it. And this is a quote from Daniel Popper of The Athletic. I really hold true to the concept, teaching belief. When we get the guys in the offseason, we're trying to understand where we're trying to take away in certain coverages, what we want that to look like. That, I think, right there is where it has to start. You want to make sure that these coverages that you're teaching your players, they fully understand. They understand the what, the where, the when, and the why. That way they can go out there and they understand what they're trying to take away, so they can go out there and execute that flawlessly.
Yeah, and I liked what he had to say about it as well when he said this. I really just think it's trying to teach the concept right from the beginning of, here's the strength of this coverage, here's the weakness. If they know you're in this coverage, here's where the ball is going to go. And what that basically means is this, is as they keep learning this defense, they're going to start to know, okay, hey, this is the look and this is the formation that this offense is giving me. When they do that, they're going to try to run this. How do I make them think that that's what they want to do, when really we're going to play a defense to take that away, right? And it goes even further than just coverage on the back end and things like that, because it also has to do with the simulated pressures and things like that, right? Hey, if we've shown this look in the past and they think I'm going to blitz on this, I'm going to fake that blitz and they're going to get hit from somebody else that they don't see coming. So I think that's really what it has to do with. He also said we're trying to understand what they're trying to take away with certain coverages, and that's how we're going to attack it. What would get them to throw the ball where we're at the advantage, showing them those different looks. So it is somewhat what Brandon Staley was trying to do, right? Show them one thing and give them something else, so they can't pre-snap before they snap the ball and know, oh, okay, hey, this is cover 2. I'm going to run my cover 2 beater. I'm going to run this play I know works well against cover 2. How do we show them something else? But Brandon Staley tried to do a lot of those things. So in theory, it works great. But it only works great if the players have the buy-in and you install it correctly, so what everyone knows what's going on. Because it can only be as complicated as your players are able to execute. And that was a big thing for him. And that was huge for me to hear his thoughts on that, because we saw, hey, the defense in theory works. Brandon Staley, you're a great defensive mind. It's too complicated and it's not working.
Yeah, I mean, hey, something that's great in theory is not always great in practice. And if you can't translate that theory to the field, then it doesn't matter how great of a mind you are. And I think that's one of the things that was really important for me to hear, and this is also from Daniel Popper, is we'll go at a rate of which those guys can operate. It might not be as much in year one. It might be a lot, depending on how it starts going. And I think that's something that's super important, because a lot of these players were complaining that this defense was too complex. They didn't understand exactly what was going on. And when you're thinking out there, then you're stuck in the mud. You can't be thinking on the field. You got to go out there and play fast and play physical. And that comes from knowing your assignments and being able to execute them because you truly understand what you're doing. I think that's what we wanted to hear, and I think that's important when you bring in a new defensive coordinator. It has similar style of concepts, but he's able to maybe translate that in the language that these players are going to be able to understand.
And the good news is like we've talked about before, he has his coaching staff from Michigan. So many defensive coaches pretty much all with him to the NFL to be able to install this correctly. Because Brandon Staley trying to do the same thing with a bunch of coaches who didn't work under him before, and it didn't work. And you can have the greatest scheme of all time, but it only takes one player, just like the running game. If one player doesn't know what they're doing, it's a busted coverage and the defense doesn't work. And this was the most interesting thing I thought Popper said, besides saying that Jesse Minter said that, was this. He said, the players would frequently approach Brandon Staley and other members of the defensive staff to tell the coaches the scheme was too complicated. The players were telling him the same things we were yelling from the outside. And to have someone say, hey, it might not be as complicated as we want it to be in year one, because we need to make sure these guys have the comprehension for it and are all exactly comprehending what they need to do in what moments. This is the great news. Once the players start to understand it, they start doing the disguises themselves, right? Yeah. The disguises aren't necessarily built into the play call. The players know the defense well enough to know, oh my God, we've seen this on film. We know this. And it's all about a level of understanding and film watching, breaking things down, where it's like, oh, I know they want to do this. Even though it's not called here, I'm going to sneak up and pretend I'm doing this when I know exactly where I'm supposed to be, but I'm going to make him think it's something it's not. But it's coming from the players, and the actual disguises are coming from the players' comprehension of the defense. That's a huge shift. So it's like, hey, these guys are going to learn it so well that they're going to be installing these things. They're going to be putting things into place. But having the coaching staff to install this new scheme and being able to kind of bridge that gap, I think, is huge. But I also think the other big thing, David, the thing that is going to decide how much success Jesse Minter is going to have here is his usage of Derwin James, right? And it seems like he had a very good understanding of why there's a fine line of trying to use his versatility, but also still trying to let him play fast.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it with Brandon Staley. He's trying to make Derwin just wear too many hats, do too many different things. And, this from Eric Smith, the Chargers team reporter. The trick Minter noted is not to ask James to do too much. I think there's a fine line there because he's so versatile, and you wish you had more than one of them. Maybe there's a matchup problem here. Maybe we want you to be able to handle. We want him to be a matchup piece, and we want to allow him to do all the things that he does really well. And I think we saw at the end of the season when they simplified Derwin James's responsibilities, he went out there and he was the enforcer that we all know and love.
Yeah, and I mean, with another thing that he said too was just like, hey, it's better when he's near the action. So kind of how do we get him there? But it is going to be a fine line because we saw Brandon Staley trying to do too much with him and it just didn't work. And we saw kind of a shell of the player that we had come to love in Derwin James last season, right? And even a little bit before that. But it seemed like towards the end of the year, right after Staley got fired, things were simplified a little bit more defensively by Derrick Ainsley. And it looked like we saw glimpses of the Derwin James who was paid as if he's the best safety in football, right? The good news is too, the best safety in football last year was Kyle Hamilton, and the guy whose defense he was in was Mike McDonald's, who Jesse Minter formed his defense after, right? Jesse Minter took over Mike McDonald's defense at Michigan, implemented his own kind of different twist to it, and then that is the defense he's running now, right? So to have someone that you've seen kind of have as much success as someone like Kyle Hamilton, to put him, in the same defensive scheme and give him someone that can actually, you've seen kind of the proof in the pudding, hey, I know he can actually maximize this guy. That's exciting because if we can see that level of Derwin James again, I think the turnaround on defense just happens so much faster, right? You also talked about the edge rushers and just how much of a benefit that gives them, right? Having those three guys as they have right now, which will probably be two guys. But it feels good. He's saying the right things, right? We'll have to see it come to fruition. But so much of it, as we learned under Brandon Staley, isn't about the scheme you're running. It's about how well can you translate that scheme to your players so they can go out there on Sundays. They're making the calls. They know what they're doing because they're so well prepared and they comprehend it so well that they can play fast, they can take things away, take the football away, and just cause chaos, right? And I think that's what we're going to see a lot of under Jesse Minter. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. Make sure you guys are back here on Monday for Mock Draft Monday. It might be time to debate this. Is it Bowers or is it Neighbors? One of those two. If you're picking one of them, who would you go? Because I don't know if we'd pick the same person as Keith Sanchez did when he was on the show this week, and he's an expert, but I might have a different option, and Daniel Jeremiah made a good point for maybe taking a receiver instead of a tight end. So make sure you don't miss it. Go subscribe or follow for free on Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. You can also find the show every day on our social media. You can find me at Dan Talk Sports on Twitter and David Drogemeyer at Dro Talk SD, as well as the show's page at Locked On LAC. You can also find us on Instagram at Locked On Chargers and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. We post the show to all those places every day. But make sure you guys are back here for Mock Draft Monday. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.